It's time for your daily LSU baseball update with Musso at the box. Now, Matt Musso.
And welcome into another edition of Musso at the box. We are just one day away from opening day at Alex Box Stadium as LSU takes back to the field to defend their national championship. They will welcome in VMI for a 2 p.m. first pitch. It's been a great week so far here on the show. I've really enjoyed it. Today we give our final preview of the pitching staff. We would have had a projected starting rotation, but we don't need to do that anymore because Jay Johnson met with the media yesterday on Wednesday and announced the starting rotation. Well, half of it, technically. So we can react to that, which will be fantastic to do. We can obviously look ahead to Sunday and Monday, give you some thoughts on who might be in those slots for LSU. We're going to take our final deep dive of the pitching staff, structure it pretty similarly to how we did yesterday's show when we took our final deep dive on the offense. We'll look at the starting rotation. We will look at the bullpen, guys you trust, guys you don't, or I don't want to say don't, guys you maybe aren't to that level with yet, some of the unknown there, right? Potential bullpen roles, all of that, and of course, the production that you're trying to replace, right? We all know you're trying to replace Paul Skenes, but what are you trying to replace as a whole on this pitching staff? So we will get into all of that here today. We'll let you hear from Jay Johnson, obviously, from over the course of the preseason, whether it be media day, whether it be his availability from last week or the availability from yesterday. So there is plenty to get to on the show today, and fired up to have you here as well. Go ahead, smash the like button. Really helps out the channel, really helps out the video. It's greatly appreciated. Obviously, subscribe up to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Subscribe up to the podcast on your favorite podcast app if you haven't already. Wherever you get your podcasts, we are there. Just search Musso at the box. All right. Let's dive into it. And first, we're going to start with production loss, just like we did yesterday with offense, right? We've talked so much about the guys that have come in, the guys that have returned, and what their roles might be, but what are you actually trying to replace? Of course, Paul Skenes. There isn't another Paul Skenes out there, and we'll get into that when we go through guys individual, and we've gone through it a little bit. But as a whole, what are you trying to replace? So, look, you lose an awful lot off this pitching staff. You just do. And again, Skenes accounted for a lot of that, right? Like if I look at the strikeouts that you lose 60% of the strikeouts from last year's team, 483. Paul Skenes had 209 of those. So that actually that matters significantly, correct? Yes. What I also should note is in factoring in this production loss, I added in Chase Shores because I know Jay Johnson said yesterday there's no timetable for his return and they haven't ruled it out yet. But, I'm very much under the assumption just from things that have been said that Chase Shores is not going to pitch this year for LSU. So you're going to have to replace everything that he gave you prior to that injury. I'm under that assumption because he has not even hit a year since that injury. And we played the audio on this show of Gage Jump, who just went through the recovery, saying when you get to month 18, that's when there's no restrictions. If Chase Shores isn't even to month 12 yet, it's just not likely. So counting him out is what I did in looking at this. So 60% of your strikeouts you have to replace. 483 out of the 798 are gone. And yes, Paul Skenes had 209 of those. That's a massive number. Your innings pitched is always what you really want to look at, though, when you're determining what you're replacing from a pitching staff, okay? And for LSU, they're having to replace 60% of their innings pitched from last season. 368 and a third innings pitched are gone off of this team. Obviously, Paul Skenes and Floyd, the top two in your rotation, accounted for a lot of that, and they're gone. Riley Cooper, one of your most trusted arms out of the bullpen, who led your team in innings, really out of the bullpen. Him and Thatcher Herd did. That's 61 and 2/3 from Cooper. that is gone. That's the type of production you have to replace him. You can look at strikeouts, that's fun. You can look at wins, that's a fun number to look at, all of that. But when you're looking at what you're actually replacing on a pitching staff, innings pitched is where to go. And for LSU, it's 60% of them. So how do they fill that? Well, when you look at what they actually lost off this, and I look at, relievers who are back that played a significant role for LSU, because, look, Herd's going to move into that rotation. Significant relievers that are back: Nate Ackenhausen, Gavin Guidry, Griffin Herring, Christian Little. Guys who were like a significant part of this. And Sam Dutton. I'll throw Sam Dutton in there as well. I mean, he had 19 appearances. That's the same amount as Christian Little. So we'll throw him in there too. But that's 6. I mean, you don't have Edwards. Granted, you lost him midseason anyway, but you don't have Garrett Edwards. Chase Shores isn't going to pitch this year, so you're not going to have him. Riley Cooper's gone. Blake Money's gone. You didn't really get to see a lot from Javin Coleman, although he's back, and we're going to touch on him extensively here in this show. So they had to go in and bring in transfers and pitchers. It was a very heavy recruiting class on pitchers and a very heavy transfer class on pitchers to kind of rebuild this staff, and they've done a great job of doing that. So let's get into replacing the 368 and a third innings pitched that you lost from last season. And let's start with the starting rotation. Jay Johnson pulled back the curtain a little bit for us yesterday when he met with the media. Here he is.
Herd will throw Friday, Holman will throw Saturday, and then we'll play it by ear from there. 4 games, there's too much to get through in the first 2 games.
I get it. Sure. I mean, we're going to get into Thatcher Herd and Luke Holman here specifically, but with the second part of that, what he said, 4 games this weekend, it's a lot. You got to really see where you're going to be on the pitching, and it goes deeper than that. It's 8 games in 10 days to start the regular season for LSU. So, I mean, that's a massive workload. We're going to get to see anybody and everybody we want to see on the bump for LSU, and a lot of different lineup combinations as well. But Thatcher Herd, I don't think it's any surprise, right? I mean, we've been telling you that for a while and hypothesizing that for a while, that Thatcher Herd would be the guy to get the ball on opening day, and it makes a lot of sense when you look at anyone else who could have been in that in that conversation. And for what it's worth, Jay Johnson said they had a lot of guys. Jay Johnson last week said they had about 5 guys that could start on Friday night, but Thatcher Herd makes the most sense. Okay, I mean, this is the guy who's your most veteran pitcher returning. He returns the most innings pitched from your team last year at 63 and a third, 8 wins. All of us got the win in the national championship game. He's been through the wars. He's been through the battles. It makes a ton of sense to give that guy the ball on opening day. Here was Jay Johnson a little bit more on why Thatcher Herd is getting the nod.
I think if you look at the improvement at the end of last season, really, whatever you want to call it, mid-May, through the College World Series, he showed pitchability, showed ability to manage the game. And if you're going to pitch on any Friday, and it just happens to be this Friday, the expectations, of giving your team a quality start and chance to win. And I think he has the ability and mental disposition to do that, and proved that time and again at the end of last season.
So the improvement's really what I want to hone in on, because I do y'all remember Thatcher Herd's season last year? Do you? It started with so much fanfare. He got that midweek start against Southern. Because remember, your starting rotation last year, opening week, was Paul Skenes, Riley Cooper, and then Chase Shores, right? And Thatcher Herd got that midweek start against Southern, and the zone just eluded him, and it didn't go well for Thatcher Herd. I remember sitting here doing the show the next day and saying, look, it was bad, and he's going to have much better days ahead in his LSU career, but that was rough. Like, he'll get better, but that was really rough. And he did ultimately get better, but it took him a while. And Jay Johnson in that cut there mentioned, like, the improvement towards the end of the season. And he mentioned mid-May. I'll do you one better. I'll go back to April. When I look back at Thatcher Herd's season, you can split it in half. He made 23 appearances last year. You can really split it damn near in half. In his first 11 appearances, and then his last 12. And the demarcation is a midweek start against Nichols. And that game sticks out to me because it was the first one. Again, I can remember doing the show the next day. It was the first one where I really saw Thatcher Herd kind of settle in. And again, this will tell you why, because I can remember it so clearly. He ended up in trouble in that first inning against Nichols. He was starting. LSU lost that game, by the way, but Nichols caught everything. He started in that first inning, got into trouble. A run came around to score, but he stranded 2 runners on base with the help of a double play, if memory serves me correct. I know he stranded the 2 runners on. He escaped. He limited the damage. That's what he had struggled with so much early on in the season. In those first 11 starts, the big inning, he could not avoid it. He avoided it there, settled in, and never looked back, and got you, I believe, into the 5th inning. Let me look that up real fast, but I believe he got you into the 5th inning of that ball game. I want to say he pitched 4 1/3. Maybe, I'm sorry, I take that back. It was 3 1/3. He got you into the 4th inning. So he escaped the damage in the first, limited it, I should say, escaped training 2 runners, got you into the 4th inning, but he never looked back from that first inning, and he dominated down the stretch. But, you look at it, and it's, okay, well, it's Nichols, it's Nichols State. I'm sorry, he pitched 4 complete. Nichols State in that, in that game. But it was the week after that against Alabama where he comes in, inning and 2/3, shutout to preserve a win in that ball game for LSU. He was dominant. And then from there, he just kind of started rolling. The shutout inning against Auburn in the 8th where he struck out 3 in the win on Friday night. He had one stinker, and it was against Mississippi State where he gave up 5 earned runs. He didn't record an out. But if you look down the stretch, so we're splitting it in half, right? His first 11 games, first 11 appearances, Thatcher Herd was 2-1 with an 8.49 ERA. Let me say that slowly. 2-1 with an 8.49 ERA. He walked 23 and struck out 36. Then you get to that Nichols game, and you have his final 12 appearances of the year. He was 6-2 with an ERA of 4.74. So, 4 runs lower? 17 walks, 48 strikeouts. The big difference, aside from the 4-run lower ERA, is the walks. And that's how you got there. He finally became comfortable. The game slowed down. The zone quit jumping on him, and he was able to dominate to where he had that one stinker against Mississippi State. And I am not this guy. Like, one of the things that infuriates me more than anything is when people, you see it a lot in football. You see it in baseball too. But you see it in football, right? A running back will go for 130 yards or whatnot, and everybody's like, yeah, but he had an 80-yarder in there. If you take that out, what do you have? I hate that because it happened. You can't take it out. But for the benefit of exercise here, that's why I gave you the number with the state game in there first, because that's what actually counts. That's what it is. But if you take that Mississippi State game out, remember, he didn't record an out. So his innings pitched over those 12 games doesn't change if you throw that game out. And if you throw that game out, it's a 3.48 ERA down that last. But he had that one stinker. You throw it in there, it's it. The ERA is still 4 runs lower than it was in the first 11 games. So the walk number was down. He really started being able to use his breaking ball, that overhand curveball, very, very well down the stretch. The Oregon State game definitely sticks out there as one. He was nails in 2 outings against Wake Forest, 6 innings, only 1 earned run against that Wake Forest team in the College World Series. Of course, the game against Florida, we know how that went. He was awesome down the stretch, and that should give you all the confidence in the world to have him go out there as your Friday night starter, at least now to start this year. That's why he's there. And the improvement was marked last year, so marked that you can separate his season into 2 halves. When the light came on for Thatcher Herd, it came on bright. And he was a major, major part of your team going forward down the stretch. And it was prophetic because Jay Johnson said it at it was the Thursday before opening day last year, Jay Johnson said that for LSU to get where they want to go, Thatcher Herd's going to have to pitch in the most important games of the season, and he did that. And I'm here to tell you he's going to have to do it again this year. If LSU wants to get where they want to go, Thatcher Herd's going to have to pitch in the most important games of the season, and here's why. Because it didn't matter if Thatcher Herd was your opening day starter or not. Thatcher Herd's going to be looked at as the ace of this team because of what we started this conversation with. He's been through the battles. Luke Holman was awesome down the stretch for Alabama last year, too. Luke Holman ain't never started a national championship game. A winner-take-all national championship game with that type of pressure on you. Thatcher Herd has. Gage Jump hasn't pitched in a year. He might arguably have the best stuff on the team. He hasn't pitched in a year. When LSU's in a tight spot and they need to give the ball to somebody, they're going to want it to be Thatcher Herd this year, and as well it should be. The fastball velocity's up more consistently to 97, 98. He got better in the fall, it looked like, off of that improvement last year. Get excited about Thatcher Herd, y'all. Yes, he had the rough outing in his final scrimmage appearance, but by all accounts from Jay Johnson yesterday, the bullpen he threw this week was elite. So fired up to have Thatcher Herd as LSU's opening day starter and foreseeable Friday night starter going forward. He deserves it. He's put in the work, and he's your most experienced and most trustworthy guy to have in that spot right now. It makes a ton of sense. All right, let's move on to Luke Holman, who's going to get the Saturday start. And y'all, this makes a lot of sense, and this is where I want to start talking about kind of replacing Paul Skenes, because you don't have another Paul Skenes. Nobody does. He was incredible. That guy doesn't come along, every year. Who did you hear him compared to most last year? Really was Steven Strasburg. I mean, that was well over a decade ago when Strasburg pitched in college. So it doesn't have, so you don't have that guy. And that's okay. I think we all understood that you weren't going to have that guy going forward. And we threw this out on an earlier podcast. The Moneyball comparison, where where Billy Bean's character, Brad Pitt, he's sitting in there, with all the scouts, and they're trying to replace Jason Giambi. And he asked them, guys, is there another first baseman like Giambi out there? No. And if there was, could we afford him? No. Well, maybe we can recreate him. And that's what LSU's looking to do, is recreate Paul Skenes. Again, you don't have a Paul Skenes, but they have guys they like an awful lot. The way it was expressed to me, and I've shared this before, is there wasn't a guy out there like him, but we found the closest thing we could to him in the transfer portal, and that starts with Luke Holman. As a matter of fact, that was said exactly about Luke Holman. So that's why it definitely starts with him. He's not going to go out there and throw 102 miles an hour past everybody. That's not his game, right? But he's going to be in the low to mid-90s. He's got a couple nasty breaking balls. Here was Jay Johnson on Luke Holman yesterday at his media availability, and him getting the second, the number 2 starting position for LSU opening weekend.
As we were preparing to play them last year, we prepare a lot, and watching, the previous few outings and looking at, what he does in terms of flood the strike zone with multiple pitches. He's a great athlete. He fields his position. He's quick to the plate. He's got a low heartbeat and can strike people out, can get weak contact. It's just such a key part of what we're doing. And he's pitched well the last couple weeks. And he's been what I thought he would be, and he's a phenomenal human being too. It's exactly what you want to have in the program is great talented players, as Luke is, that are great people. And kind of sad we're only gonna have him for 1 year, because he's a good pitcher and a great person.
They think he's going to be a first rounder. I mean, they're that high on him. Look, you were probably only going to have him 1 year anyway. He was going to go high enough in the draft to leave. But they think he's going to be a first rounder. I mean, they think they have that type of guy in Luke Holman. And for what it's worth, D1 Baseball agrees. Luke Holman came in as the number 20 college prospect out of the top 200 for the MLB draft. So that'd be a first rounder. Like they agree in that assessment as well. So be excited for Holman. We've talked a lot about him as well, guys. Righty, who was kind of forced into that starting role for Alabama last year after injuries to Ben Hess and Grayson Hitt, and never shied away from it. Took it and ran with it. was awesome in that start against Vanderbilt on a Thursday night. 7 innings, 2 runs, was fantastic there. Pitched great against Florida in the SEC tournament, a team that was runner-up in the College World Series. Pitched 5+ innings in that one. Only gave up 3 earned. Against that lineup, that's very, very good. Was really good against Wake Forest in a super regional. Again, 5+ innings. Struck out 8 against that team. He's got a very, very bright future, and somebody that they're very, very high on is Luke Holman. So it makes a lot of sense. Another veteran guy who's been through the wars in the SEC. Again, like we said, was a Friday night guy, even though that wasn't necessarily what his role was going to thought to be. But the mindset of that, y'all, and we've talked about it on the previous show, the mindset of a guy like Luke Holman to be forced into the role. He started as Bama's midweek guy last year. Like, that's what they looked at him to do to start the year. He ends up on Friday night. That can break people. Not Luke Holman. And I love that going forward with him in that type of role because of the mindset. All right. So that leaves Sunday and Monday as to who goes. And there's plenty of options that LSU has. This is where I want to get into a few of those guys. I will start with Gage Jump. And I know there's a lot of people wondering about Jump's status because I've been asked about it an awful lot, where 2 weeks ago in a scrimmage, he pitched, it was either an inning or 2 innings, I can't remember, and then left. You didn't see him, and you haven't seen him since. And that's caused some people to ask about injury and whatnot. And we've been telling you that it's going to be Herd, Holman, Jump, Herd, Holman, Jump, Hold, Holman, Jump. That's what they want to have out there. Jay Johnson was asked, as soon as he announced the starting rotation and left off Sunday, he was asked about Gage Jump and his status, and here's what Jay said.
We get players ready for the season in different ways sometimes. That's what we're doing, and coming off the history, we're always going to take care of the players, and that's what we're doing right now. He'll be just fine.
He's not going to give you a lot there. And that's really one reason that we haven't talked about it a whole lot on the show, is because nobody's giving you a lot with the situation going on with Gage Jump right now. I feel confident saying it's not arm related. And I think they're just bringing him along a little bit slowly now. And you may see him this weekend, you may not, but it's nothing drastic. Jay sounded very calm in saying that and said he'll be all right. Like, it'll be fine. They're going to protect the player and do their due diligence. LSU, and again, I'm not saying he's not going to pitch this weekend. That don't misunderstand me. I'm very hopeful that you do see him, and if you do, I think he gets the start in game number 3. Like, if you see Gage Jump this weekend, it's going to be in that starting role in game number 3. I do believe. So, I mean, trust the head coach. That's all I'm going to give you. It's really what I'm going to give you on that. I mean, Jay's never overly forthcoming with any injury or injury situation or possibility or any of that stuff. But he's also not going to just stand right up there and lie to you and tell you he's going to be all right if he's not. So they'll have him at some point, and it very well could be this weekend. That would not surprise me at all. If it's this weekend, it wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't pitch this weekend. It's fine. The bottom line, LSU should not need Gage Jump to go out there and beat VMI and beat Central Arkansas with the depth that they have on this pitching staff that we're about to get into. But when they get Gage Jump, when he is there and they've brought him along and they feel comfortable just turning him loose, they've got a hell of a player and a hell of an arm in that kid, where it's going to be mid to high 90s on the fastball, 4 pitches. We've let you hear from Jump. He describes himself as very aggressive on the mound. It's again, arguably the best stuff on the staff is what you hear around that building. So bright future there. He's definitely an option this weekend, albeit maybe not pitching as much as you would have liked to have seen him lead into the week. But I think he's an option. If it's not Gage Jump, I look at 2 other guys right now. Of course, maybe it could be a Nate Ackenhausen, but I actually think Nate Ackenhausen is going to be first out of the bullpen on Friday. So I look at 2 other guys, and it's the 2 guys we have talked a lot about in recapping scrimmages here, and that's Javin Coleman and Cade Anderson. And quite honestly, that's the order I would take them in. If I were filling it out and I needed a Sunday and Monday guy and Gage Jump isn't available, I'm throwing Javin Coleman Sunday, and then I will let Cade Anderson start the that Monday game. And then we'll go from there. Where you move to the midweek, your guess is as good as mine. That could be a Griffin Herring who's, has extended a little bit. It could be a Cam Johnson maybe in that spot there. There's plenty of options. It could be a Christian Little maybe even in those type of spots. So, but for me, if I were filling it out, I'd go Coleman and then Anderson. So let's talk about Javin Coleman. We've talked about him an awful lot, and I think he's looked awesome so far. I really do. I think he's looked very, very good. He's another one whose season is interesting last year. Do you remember that? Because that's the word I've used so much when talking about him out of those scrimmages is health. Like he looks healthy. Javin Coleman last year when he came back, he rushed back. Like he did. I think he came back a little too early. And I think you saw that in the inconsistencies because that's what it was. He gets that start against ULL in the midweek for his first time back. Shoves in that one inning. The fastball was up to 95, even bumped to 96, I believe. He struck out 2 guys. And then he comes back in that series against Ole Miss and gives up 3 runs in 2 innings, and it's a little bit more shaky. He's taken deep a couple times. It was I think that was the game that it was the game Travinski hit that home run in. But then he comes back the week after that and throws 2 1/3 brilliant innings with 6 strikeouts against Alabama. It was the best he looked all year in that. Struggled in his inning against Auburn, giving up 2 runs. Mississippi State, very good. Only an earned run in 2 1/3. Then got the start against Georgia. Really struggled in that game, giving up 4 runs. And just really was kind of never the same after that. It looked like he had kind of hit a wall in that Georgia game and gave up 2 runs against Wake Forest. So it was just that back and forth. He looks great right now. He looks like he's added some weight. And coming from the left side, he's been very, very good. I'll give you the numbers that I've seen from him so far in 3 different scrimmage outings from a guy like Javin Coleman. If you bear with me here momentarily. So we're looking at 8 1/3, I do believe. I will double check that real fast here. Yes, 8 1/3 innings, 4 runs. And he has, let's see, that's 7 strikeouts. 7 strikeouts and 8 1/3, only the 4 runs. He's looked very, very good. And 3 of those 4 runs came in 1 inning. He gave up a 3-run homer to Mac Bingham. But outside of that, that was it. He threw shutout ball the rest of that day. So he's just looked very, very good. He's a more veteran arm. You're looking to close out a weekend. If you need someone to really fill that role, he started for you before. That's why I would go with Javin Coleman. The fastball's back up to 95. We've seen it as high as. And he's done a nice job pounding the zone outside of the last scrimmage. So I would love to see him get that role. Cade Anderson potentially going on a Monday, where LSU, let's see, that would be Central Arkansas again, wouldn't it? Forgive me, I'm not totally. No, yes, that'd be Central Arkansas again. The thing with Anderson, he throws a lot of strikes. Love it. Fastball's up to 94 from the left side. Love it. As a couple nice breaking balls, slider, and what looks like a curve. Love that. That second inning's just been a bit of a problem for him so far in the scrimmages. It's not even a second trip through the lineup thing. It's a second inning, and they've beat him up pretty good. But he's definitely an option. They want him to have a role. Again, he pounds the zones. He just has to refine it a little bit. The stuff is good. He's coming off of an injury, obviously, last year, and I didn't pitch his senior year of high school, so there's going to take some easing back in. If they do go ahead and give him the start, I wouldn't expect him maybe to go that deep into the game, which is where maybe you do see somebody else on that Monday role and save him for the midweek game. They don't have a midweek game. That's right. They play that Thursday with Northern Illinois. So I don't expect you to have him there. I think you'd actually probably throw Herd there to get him, used to having to do that later in the season. So Anderson's probably going to be the guy, at least in my mind. And you might not see him go super deep into the ball game, but they want him to have a role in this team, and I think he's going to have a very positive role in the team. We've talked a lot about him. You can go back through a lot of episodes if you want more on Cade Anderson, and and hear it, because we've gone in depth on him. But I do think he's going to get a start this weekend, and my best bet for that is probably Monday. All right, let's talk about the bullpen a little bit. I really need to wrap this up because we're going a little heavy. But let's talk about the bullpen a little bit here now. So we talked about that guys that are back that you trust. Ackenhausen, Guidry, Herring. Is that fair? I think that's fair to say that's it, right? I think if I asked most of you right now, hey, would you trust Christian Little to go out there with the game on the line in a one-run game in the 8th inning, most of you would probably look at me like I had 4 heads. We're going to talk about Christian Little because for him to have success, it's very cut and dry what he needs to do. And I think he has a great chance to do it. So we're going to get into him as well momentarily. You all trust Gavin Guidry, right? I mean, yeah. Griffin Herring, yeah. Okay. That's 3 guys. Now, they've brought in a lot of people that I think you should trust. I think you should trust Justin Lure, the transfer from Xavier, and he's going to be at the back end of your bullpen with Guidry. I think you should absolutely trust that guy. He was fantastic in the fall, was very good in the spring, did have a bit of a rough outing in the last scrimmage, but that's okay. Or the last Sunday scrimmage, I should say, but that's okay. The stuff's plenty good enough from Lure. He was all Big East, had 7 saves and 6 wins last year, and the fastball's 89-92, and it's a really filthy slider that just runs away from a lefty's barrel. It's the classic left-handed, and it comes from a herky-jerky kind of 3/4 delivery. So yeah, I would put him in that category as well as somebody you trust and is going to help you replace all those innings that you lost. I think Cade Woods. I think you really potentially have something there. Experienced guy who led Alabama's bullpen last year in appearances, and I've seen him do nothing but throw shutout baseball. And what really stood out was that last scrimmage I was at on Sunday when no other pitcher threw shutout ball. It was a really offensive day. He did. So I like that, and I think he can fill a bunch of different roles for you, obviously, as well. So that's a big plus. So, I mean, you're up to 5 guys right there, obviously, that you trust. And then you get into that crop of, okay, can you? Guys that I think you can, that could potentially go. And this is where we'll talk Christian Little. This is where we'll talk Sam Dutton. This is where we'll talk guys like that. And let's start with Little. So, first, here's Jay Johnson on Media Day talking about the development of Christian Little now going into his 2nd season at LSU.
We have a saying with the players is, not everybody likes to get messy, but the messy is where the development happens. And he's had success. I mean, had some great outings. Closed out that win at Texas last year, threw great against Kentucky here to start us off in that game, finished the game at Texas A&M. So he was a contributor on the national championship team. But when you look at his ability to throw 4 pitches for strikes, movement, velocity, makes the ball go down, can soften hitters up, we all believe in his ceiling. And so I think he put in a lot of work in the summertime on his own and then came back in a better place. And I think the working relationship with him and Coach Yeski has been really good.
Something else I wanted to talk about today, too, was the Nate Yeski factor. I don't think I'm going to have enough time. We're gonna get to it, though, at some point. For Christian Little, for me, the key to his success is really simple. Go back to his sophomore year at Vanderbilt. All right. Think of where he was as a freshman at Vanderbilt, where he reclassified. He should have been in high school, but he's pitching at Vanderbilt in the SEC. And not only that, he pitched in the World Series in that year, too. And the numbers were good. They weren't going to blow you away, but when you take all of that into account, you look at a 3-2 record in 14 games, 11 starts, an ERA in the mid-5s, 42 2/3 innings, 49 strikeouts. Like, okay, that's good. He made a huge jump in his 2nd year at Vanderbilt. Pitched mainly out of the bullpen. Only 3 starts out of his 18 appearances in his sophomore year at Vanderbilt. He had an ERA of 3.72 in 38 2/3 innings. It's really comparable to what he did at LSU this past year. He had 19 appearances. So 18 appearances in his sophomore year at Vanderbilt, 19 last year at LSU. I know numbers can sometimes be hard to follow, but bear with me. I have a point. 38 2/3 innings as a sophomore at Vanderbilt, 34 and 2/3 innings. Last year at LSU, again, mostly out of the bullpen. The stark difference. The stark difference is walks. Last year at LSU, Christian Little walked 29 batters in those 34 and 2/3 innings pitched. His sophomore year at Vanderbilt, he walked 17. And that resulted in an ERA of 3.72. It's what Jay Johnson alluded to in that cut. His ability to throw 4 pitches for strikes. And if he can throw more strikes, like he's already proven to be able to do in his college career, you can get a 3.72 ERA out of Christian Little, or maybe even lower, because now he's 2 years older than that. And if LSU gets 3.72 earned run average out of Christian Little, that's going to be epic for this team. It just will be. But he's got to throw strikes. It's the stark difference. In his freshman year at Vanderbilt, he walked 22. It is noticeable there. When Christian Little was awesome early on in the season, he wasn't walking anybody. I mean, he was pounding the zone. The stuff's that good. You just need it a little bit more consistently. And if you get it, he's shown already in his college career he can be very good. And LSU's going to need another reliable right-handed option to emerge in the bullpen. Because Justin Luer, yeah, you trust him, but he's lefty. Nate Ackenhausen, you trust him, he's a lefty. Griffin Herring, you trust him, he's a lefty. You know, Cam Johnson, everyone has high expectations for him, he's a lefty. You have Gavin Guidry. In that conversation of righties that you trust, you're going to need one more, and it needs to be Christian Little. And it's going to happen if he doesn't walk guys. It's that simple. It's hard to hit. Christian Little last year, the batting average against on Little, 241. 241. He's hard to hit. Stop walking people. All right, I want to talk about Sam Dutton. For Sam Dutton, quit giving up so many hits. He doesn't walk people. And he's been awesome his last 2 outings in scrimmages. Shutout ball, which is very encouraging because the stuff is plenty good enough. He can run it up to 94, 95 miles an hour. The slider, when it's on, is a really, really nice pitch. It can be a very good put-away pitch for him. We told you this a couple shows ago. Out of LSU's pitchers last year that were healthy for the whole season, he was the only one in single-digit walks. So he throws a lot of strikes. The problem is teams hit 391 off of him. You need a little bit more quality of strike from Sam Dutton, and it looks like you've kind of been getting that here lately in the scrimmages. So that's good because a guy who's got experience, he's got experience in the SEC, can he take the next step? That's another potential threat for you there as a right-handed arm. The last guy I really want to touch on, and I know I haven't really mentioned Cam Johnson, and I'm sorry. We talked extensively about Cam Johnson in our Meet the Freshman episode. I think Cam's going to be awesome at LSU. He's the highest-rated prospect to ever make it to campus. We know all of that. The future for him is very, 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 very bright. It's a fastball in the high 90s, can touch 100 every now and then. He's going to be great. He was in the top 5 in just about every category for LSU in the fall, heading into this practice period. Into the regular season, he's going to be great. I think he slots in more to the back end of your bullpen right now, and probably in the midweek right now. You'll watch his role grow over the course of the season. The other guy I want to talk about is DJ Primo. And here's why. Here's why I want to talk about that. Because at Media Day, Jay Johnson was asked player feedback on Nate Yeskie, and he said this.
Player feedback and pitcher feedback on Coach Yeskie's been phenomenal. And that's why I brought him here. I brought him here to know exactly what I was getting out of a pitching coach. And we haven't even seen the best of it yet because the games haven't started. That's where I think he really adds a tremendous amount of value. But, talking about Christian Little, the improvement there, DJ Primo, we had him and Coach Yeski working one-on-one in the mornings all fall, and that worked really, really well. And you're taking a guy that redshirted, couldn't even put him on a mound, and you'll be in the game at important times.
The end of that cut's why I want to talk about DJ Primo. He'll be in the game at important times. Couldn't get him on the mound last year. He'll be in the game at important times. Primo's a left-hander, again, redshirted, so you might not be that familiar with him last year, but he was a top 10 player in the state of Louisiana out of high school, went to Central, was all state, all district, all that, was really, really good. And from what I saw from him last season in the scrimmages, I can give you that. I'll be candid, I missed every one of his outings here this time around, but maybe the stuff's ticked up a little bit, but whenever I saw him heading into what would have been his freshman year, but he redshirted, the fastball was low 90s and topped at 93 from the left side, and the slider was pretty darn good too, 82, 85. So, I mean, like, the stuff's good. What's encouraging is that shows you development, and that's kind of really where I wanted to take the conversation to Nate Yeski, but I'm out of time. So just file that away, DJ Primo. Stuff looked really good last year, and it's taken a jump because you couldn't get him on the mound. Now you can. It's another left-handed option, but that could be a surprise option that many aren't foreseeing LSU to have this year, and really could end up being maybe in that. I hesitate to say this because it's a hell of a lot of expectation to put on somebody, but maybe that Garrett Edwards role last year where he kind of, you saw it in flashes in the scrimmage and like, okay, can he do this? And he did it. Maybe DJ Primo's that guy that kind of comes out of nowhere, and it's like, man, they had this guy stashed the entire time. Could be. Not saying it will be, but it could be. And that's from the head coach, 3 weeks ago, telling you he's going to be in the game at an important time. So file away DJ Primo. All right, that's our preview on the pitching staff. I did not get to everything I wanted to get to. I'm sorry. We didn't even talk about the back end of the bullpen. It's going to be Guidry and Lure. Pick your order. For what it's worth, when they ran it out there in the Sunday scrimmage, it was Lure than Guidry. You feel great about those two guys at the back end of your bullpen. I'm very excited about that. You can find it in other episodes about pitching. We have to get out of here, though, because I think I'm at about 42 minutes. So that's going to do it for today. Thank you for tuning in. The next time we're back here on Musso at the Box, we're previewing baseball, actual baseball. We'll give you a preview on VMI. We'll give you a preview on Central Arkansas, and we'll tell you what we want to see from LSU on opening weekend. That's on tomorrow's Musso at the Box.